Hi everybody, welcome to Beyond the Lines. My name is Sarah, I'm the artist behind Pinselgeschichten, and today I'm gonna finish the wedding in the Outlander coloring book. This is done and ready and colored and all of that. And I'm gonna talk to you about how I do choose colors, especially for the curtain, if you remember in the last videos that I was thinking about it, and how I choose and color wood that is lit up with candles. So there's a little bit of explanation and thoughts and ideas on how I work on that, and a little time-lapse sections coming up as well, because lots and lots of gel pen action is happening. I hope you enjoy, and I'm gonna see you next week for the next video. That's bye in artwork world. Definitely. I'm goofy today. Have fun. Let's get started. I already chose a couple of colors that I want to use for the background. They have been used before. I just took them out of my storage box for this particular picture here. And in the last video I had mentioned, I think, that I wanted to make the background a wooden wall, not a stone wall. So I'm just gonna start with yellow, golden ochre, and a little bit of the saffron, so the shades that I used here on the candles and also on the hair, and lots and lots of raw sienna, which is the light brown that I used as the first layer in Claire's hair. And I want to paint the background behind the candelabra, because there's gonna be a little shimmer of yellow and orange and colors and such around the candles. I'm gonna add a little brown on top, don't worry. But there's like a reflection on the wooden wall. And I can't start with the dark brown and then layer yellow and orange on top, because that's just not really working very well with watercolor. I could do that. Would I paint with acrylics, for example? That would work totally fine. But that's not gonna work with watercolors, so I gotta go from light to dark, which means I'm starting with the yellow and layering a bit of the golden ochre on top, and then going into saffron, give it a little bit of a reddish tint. And then cleaning up my brush, going back to the yellow where I think I got a little bit too much of the saffron, but I like the color, I gotta say. And then cleaning up with a little bit of only yellow around the candles. I will probably go over the flames of those candles once more, just to add a little more of the blue. and maybe a little bit of the saffron. I could actually go for the saffron right now. Just add a little more. And now I can go in with the raw sienna, which is the very light brown, and fill in the bits around the halo of the candles. And the further I go away from that candelabra, the darker my browns will get. So I do have brown, Van Dyke brown, and sepia next to me. So I'm gonna go darker and darker and darker the further I get away from the candelabra. But up here, I think could have quite a bit of the raw sienna. Make it a gradient look. Go. Might be a little boring maybe for you guys, I'm not sure, because I'm just filling in one color, and then at one point I'm gonna gradiently, is that a word? Bring in a second color, like the darker ones, but around the chandelier here. Hey, that rhymes. The chandelier here. I'm just gonna go with the light brown, which is the raw sienna. At one point, of course, I will turn my page again to see if the gradient color change looks well enough right side up. It looks awesome upside down, I gotta say. So we'll see. I think I'm almost at that point where I can bring in the next color, start getting darker. Let me see. Yeah, I think I am at that point. So I'm gonna bring in brown and start using that instead of the raw sienna. I could maybe mix in the rest of my raw sienna on the palette that I have on the palette. I could actually do that, so let's do that and have a little bit of a softer transition between the two colors. So I should start with the area around the raw sienna. A little more. And then I can go on to only the brown. No more raw sienna on my brush, just the brown, brown, brown. And bring that in. And I need more of the brown. Woo! I'm throwing away the cap of my brush. There's a trick. Put it back here. Just going over the brown with a second layer because the first one was quite watery and a little too light for my personal taste. So since I want to go darker and darker and darker, the further I get away from the candles, I need a little more saturation on the paper and not have this look too transparent. So the trick is to go over everything with a second layer. And then I can try to feather it out a little more into the raw sienna. Not to have a very harsh border or line between the two brown tones, but to have it look maybe a little more gradient, a little more natural. And then I can bring in the Van Dyke brown. And I'm gonna mix that with the remaining brown on my palette. Have a little bit of a softer transition between colors, going between the tassels. Get a little cooler with the tone. Oh, no. That's not what I want. I have a little bit of the brown on the clear's skin, so I'm just gonna go over it with a water brush and blot it away. That way it is way less visible. Again, blending. I'm just dabbing, or you see I'm having quite the shaky way of painting when I come to the part of the paper where there's another color next to it. So I'm trying to dab things over each other, like the different shades of brown, make it look a little smoother and a little more gradient, even with the transition between the two shades of brown. And once I have that down, I can go less shaky with my hand and direct the color a little more around the objects that I have already painted. Now that's the point where I can do that, and I'm only going for Van Dyke brown now, so no more warm brown. I'm just with the cool shades now. That doesn't look too shabby. I like that. So I can bring down the brown to Claire's skirt. Also in between the candelabra and her dress. And going around her ruffled sleeve. There we go. I like the color transition from the yellows and oranges to the browns in this particular part, so I can leave it as it is and bring in the brown down here. I'm still only working with the Van Dyke. But I'm gonna bring in sepia in just a little while to darken things up even more. So time for the sepia. There we go. So I'm gonna first of all color the part next to Jamie, because there's really no light down here, so I can go with my darkest color. I don't really need a lot of warm browns to indicate that this is part of the interior design, the wall, whatever. But I also want to bring in the sepia for... I need a little more water with it for the walls here, so shading them. Because I think this is kind of like a column that blocks off the light here towards the right, at least a little bit. So I'm just gonna pull this with only a damp brush, no pigment in there. And I'm gonna do the same on some of those lines here. Just have them stand out a bit. I can't really shade a lot up here because there's just too much of candlelight lighting everything up. So there's no point in putting sepia on these lines because anything that would have been a shadow is taken away by the fact that there's candles lighting up everything. I can use a little bit of the very diluted sepia down here. And also in this tiny little corner here. And of course here around that column or whatever it is. Just adding a little bit and then with only a damp brush feathering it out a little bit towards my current right hand side. I can even go a little darker in this part. So I'm gonna use the sepia with a little less water than I did before. And add another layer of shadow color. That's more like it. Now the question is, am I gonna take the golden crayon to color the tassels, or am I not? I think I'm gonna put it on top of another crayon, maybe a very light yellow, and then layer the gold on top. But I gotta think about that for a minute. Meanwhile, I'm gonna let this dry, and through the magic of editing, I'm gonna tell you what I decided in a hot second. Okay, so I decided I want to have a little bit of that very pale yellow that I used for the candles. I want to have that underneath the golden crayon. So I'm just gonna add a little bit of that very pale yellow to the tassels and the trim here, just as an underpainting. Because the trouble with gold and silver watercolor is that sometimes it looks a little pale or desaturated when you only put metallic color somewhere. Some of the supplies are really awesome, very highly pigmented and creamy and such and all of that. But I find that I like it a little more when there is an underpainting under silver, copper, gold. Bronze, not so much, fun fact. It's a little differently pigmented. Like here you can see these three metallic colors. but the shimmer is only really visible here. And this looks like greenish. There's a tiny little smidge of shimmer, which is enough for me. When it comes to the watercolor, I don't want this to sparkle like crazy back here because there's no direct light hitting. I don't want to use gel pens necessarily on the fabric, but let me quickly dry it. But it almost looks more like, I don't know, a very greenish yellow, not so much a gold, without that shimmer. Which is, like I said, totally fine for me if something with a metallic look is in the shadow and there are no sparkles supposed to be there. But I'm not too fond of it for, say, a reflection that is the focal point in like bright daylight or a highlight spot or something. I would rather prefer gel pens for that. But it's enough of a shimmer here for me, and you can see the underpainting is kind of giving it a little more of a yellowish tint. And that's enough for me, that's perfect. So that's why I like underpaintings. Especially for metallic colors, I gotta say. It depends on the kind of supply as well. So say acrylics work a little differently than watercolors when it comes to how I work with metallics, but since I'm working with watercolors here, I'm of course talking about watercolors. Now I need a little bit of a shadow, and I'm gonna take the golden ochre that I still have on my palette, and I'm just gonna shade some of those bits here. Just a tiny bit. Very little is enough to make it look shaded. It's very subtle though. That's totally fine for me, because I'm currently occupied in my brain with what goddamn color am I gonna choose for the curtains. I want a little bit of maybe a golden gel pen or something for the embroidery. So I need contrast with the color. I need a dark color so that I can use the golden gel pen on top and have it look nice. Question is, which one? I don't want to use red because I want the red to be the focal point color here with no repetition anywhere. I don't want to use browns because there's a lot of brown there already. Yellows, not so much. I'm thinking about maybe a dark, cool gray, because it would push the, what are my lights doing? They're flickering a bit, sorry about that. Because that would push the curtain into the background, would also give color repetition with the candelabra here, and a little bit of Jamie's sword and such. Questions, so many questions. I think I'm gonna go cool gray, but I just saw something that needs a little bit of adjusting, and that is the candelabra. A little bit of black has to go in there, quite diluted, because I just squinted at some of the things and it seems now that everything is dry. The Payne's gray is not enough to shade this pretty well. So let's bring in a little bit of black with quite a lot of water. While I do that, I can still think about my curtain. I'm really liking the idea of a dark gray curtain. And then have a little bit of that gold on top from like the gel pen and such. I'm liking the idea. So maybe I should just go for it. Cause like that with the dark gray for the curtain, I wouldn't introduce a new color. That's one thing I like. I don't want to introduce a new color for the curtain, because then it would pop out again because I don't have color repetition. Also, gray is a neutral color, so it moves into the background automatically and gives way to the saffron and the red and such. And it's color repetition from the chandelier, from the belt, and a tiny little bit even from the dress, where I'm gonna put gold as well. So cool gray it is. To choose one though, what do I want? The charcoal gray looks nice, and the grayish black. Let's take these two, the charcoal and the grayish black. Starting with the charcoal, which is not this one. Let's go here. Need to clean up my palette. There's so many colors on there. So grayish black is the name of the game. The name of the game is grayish black on paper. So I'm just gonna go over everything that is curtain. And I'm trying to stay with the direction of the folds of the fabric, just like I did with the dress of Claire and also the tartan of Jamie's. So I'm gonna try and work with the fabric, and that way have less irritating brush strokes that are contrary to the direction of the fabric. Need a little more of the charcoal. And the last little bit before I can go into shading and then move on from watercolors to gel pens and ink pens and all of that for lovely details. I'm pretty sure I can finish the video and the page today. So next week there's gonna be a new page, or the next page in the book that I'm gonna start. That was way quicker than I had anticipated. I thought it might take me like 4 or 5 videos to complete this page, but it looks like 3 is also a very doable number. So now on to the grayish black. Is this dry? Yeah, I can go over that. Now I'm just shading the folds. And just a little bit down here. Now I don't think I need the gray, but I need a little more of that blue to put on the candles. So I'm gonna take it from the crayon right away. Just dab that in. That's more like it. So I would be done with the watercolors now. To let this dry, in between I can quickly clean my palette off screen. You can only see a bit. Let me move things, because why not? And paper towel, off we go. Cleaning up that whole colory mess here. And my palette is as good as new. There we go. I need a little bit of space on my desk, because now I'm going for gel pens and ink pens and such. So I definitely need a white one. Let's see if I need silver. What else do I have here? Got a golden one. I need, that's too big. Need a very small, very fine black liner. There it is. Need you. I might need you. And I've got lots and lots of other gel pens right next to me. So we'll see what I need. I'm pretty sure I won't need any of those colors. We'll see. I'm gonna start with a little bit of gold. I think, is this gold shimmer? Yes, it's gold shimmer. It's not gold with sparkles. So I'm just gonna go over all of those lines here. And make them golden. Might be a little tedious and take a long while, so I'm gonna to do the time lapse for the curtain. I'm just really going over those lines that the illustrator gave me and make them gold. So see you in a minute. All right, the curtain is done, I'd say. Yeah. Now I need to work my way from the top right to the bottom left so that I don't smear anything. With my gel pens. So I'm just gonna go over things with silver here on the brooch for Jamie. I might want to add a little bit of a darker silver gray sparkle. And then onto the belt buckle. And black gel pen for those holes here in the belt. Oh, there's more. Then I can move on to his sword. Go over those engraved patterns here. And I can move on to Claire's white flowers in her hair. And with a very fine black marker, it says 0.1 millimeter gel pen, not gel pen, marker. Just gonna add a few more lines on her eyelashes, and then I can move on to the earring, which is gonna be silver, 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 and a tiny little bit of a golden shimmer. And then I can move on to her dress. Now it's said in the book that she has golden lilies and such all over her dress. So I'm going to add a little bit of gold to the patterns on her dress. And because that's more of a hideous kind of thing to watch, I'm gonna time lapse this again. I gotta interrupt because I'm at the bracelet. So I will take my silver gel pen to color the bracelet. And I think it has a golden blob on top. There we go. Now I can go back to the dress and all the squiggles there. So back to time lapse. All right, the dress is done, Claire is done. I think I will just add a tiny little bit of silver shimmer here on top of the chandelier, where there's a little bit of a reflection from the candlelight. And that pretty much sums up my picture, I think. Let me do a final check. I think I want a little more of the white gel pen here. And maybe a few dots here on the rose. Yeah, I think that's that. Let me do the final check. That seems to be it. So that would be the final stage of the wedding. And next week I'm gonna move on to this picture. And honestly, I'm not looking forward to it because I don't like the line work. But I will think about how I can make it work. It's yeah, I'm not gonna like it. I would honestly like to skip that page. But okay, I committed to coloring the whole thing, so I gotta work. But I hope you enjoyed watching along. If you have questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below. The blog post is up by now for this last part, where I list all of the Neocolor 2 crayons I used today and the gel pens and all of that, in case you like a color combo and want to use it in one of your pictures. Thanks again for watching, and I'm gonna see you next Thursday. Take good care, guys. Be creative, do some coloring, painting, drawing, all of that stuff, and most of all, have fun with it. Take care, guys. Bye.